Navigating pop music fandom today is like moving through a war zone. The Swifties and the Angels had a moment. The Selinator and Arianator battle has crossed over into award season. Any female connecting a rhyme together puts you on a Barb's list. And Drake and Kendrick, I mean, are you even a fan if you aren't ready to crash out? Because loving an artist is a full-time job. Loving an artist is fighting their battles for them. Loving an artist is choosing a side and staying there, no matter how many times you have to be reminded that they lost. Pop music has become sports. Winning a Grammy is like winning a championship. Number ones are like home runs. The Barbs are like Philly fans. And every Drake has a Joe Budden, just like every LeBron has a Skip Bayless. Well, and a Drake. And just like in sports, none of this is casual anymore. With one study even finding that 92% of pop music superfans seek a deep-seated desire to feel a more intimate connection to their favorite artists. And in all of this comes an obsession with sales numbers, review scores, and narratives. Pop music fandom now is not only as entitled, fanatical, and overly dedicated as sports, but just as tribal. And while Gamergate, the Trump era of politics, and a global pandemic are easy to blame for how divided the world's become, this energy seeped its way into music long before 2016. At some point, pop music fandom got personal. At some point, it became about choosing a side, and at some point, it became sports. And the key to answering those questions is by unpacking the three pivotal moments of the 2000s that explain it all. So find your pair of shutter shades, text VOTE to 5704, and get your MySpace open because we're going back to the 2000s, baby. The 2000s were a pivotal time in pop culture for many reasons. The explosion of social media, our introduction to stars like Taylor Swift, Miley Cyrus, Shrek. But I don't think there's anything as impactful as 2002's American Idol. American Idol was the TV show. I mean, I can't even explain to you the chokehold that it had on culture. It was emotional, suspenseful, and just inescapable. Like, I don't think there's a person that's my age that hasn't seen an episode of American Idol at this point. It was so big that even the kids that were too cool for school were like, oh, well, I only watched the audition because that's what it's funny. And like, yeah, but you still f***ing watched it. And I guess for maybe anybody who doesn't know, which if you don't, am I Unk now? American Idol was a reality competition show where thousands of unsigned singers across the US would audition for their chance to compete in a week-to-week competition in search of the next major American pop star. But the catch this time around was that you at home decided who the next American Idol was. They'd perform on Tuesday, vote via text or phone call for who you wanted to advance to the next round, and Wednesday night, Dana DeGarmo was out. And the show produced massive stars. Nothing set the table more for the pop culture landscape of the 21st century than Idol. Because it not only was a way to fast forward through talent scouting and artist development by having audiences do the heavy lifting for you every week, but it met the audience exactly where they were at that moment. A broken America looking to come together through our favorite pastime, a competition. And come together the country did over American Idol. Fan communities online were organizing to vote for their favorite. People were trying to sabotage the show by voting for the worst. Little girls crying when David Archuleta lost. People accusing the producers of voter fraud and interference. Fans became legitimately invested in the stars of the show because American Idol gave you the power to coordinate the next pop star in your living room. And you as a viewer were just as invested in the success of an artist like a record exec would be. Because you watched them walk into that dinky little audition room with a dream and then end up at the finale in Hollywood. And listen, that's great and beautiful, but the best explanation of the post-American Idol pop culture zeitgeist comes in the form of this photo of 14-year-old me in American Idol Season 5 4th place finalist Chris Daughtry, and the only reason it exists being that my mom tweeted this out at him after he declined taking a photo with us in a hotel lobby. So, thanks, Mom. But that's all to say, Idol changed the air in pop culture, and the entitlement of fans shifted after American Idol. Because saying these kids literally made you a star is much different than they made you rich by buying your album. The audience were not only the gatekeepers, but they felt as connected to an artist as ever. The same way a city feels connected to their team. There was just this feeling of entitlement that fans began to have just based on showing up every week to tune in for that person. And I mean, when you're RCA Records and you hold the exclusive rights to sign any of the artists who touch that stage, this is more of a dream come true. It's, as Larry Jackson put it, the greatest label venture of all time. And Idol was just the beginning. Because while some fans once lived in the shadows, the internet gave them a megaphone. Which, speaking of Al Gore's internet, have you ever Googled yourself? Or like even a loved one or a family member? Isn't it kind of insane how much information is just publicly available? Whether it's an old address, phone number, or other details you didn't expect to find. How did it make you feel that anyone could find and see it? Because I know it's made me feel pretty uneasy, and thanks to today's video sponsor, Aura, they'll help you remove your personal information from data brokers and people search sites that can sell your info to identity thieves, scammers, and more. And you can do this all in one app at one affordable price. Aura also offers an amazing suite of features with a subscription like antivirus scanning, safe browsing, VPN, scam call protection, and their password manager that helps track passwords of yours that may have been leaked onto the internet. Which you may be thinking, but why would my password be at risk? I'm just Harry. But yeah, I was pretty shocked when I saw how many of mine were just out there for the taking. And that's why I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches and brokers. And if you don't want to either, you can go to aura.com/Vinny to try for 2 weeks for free. And that'll be enough time for Aura to see if any of your personal data has been exposed. So thank you so much to Aura for sponsoring this video. And if this interests you at all, the link can be found in the description below. Now let's get back to the show. The internet really was like the Wild West in 2007, and YouTube back then was really one of those you just had to be there moments. Anyone could upload something and become a sensation overnight, and you were just watching these things that you had never really seen before. There was this excitement when someone would come up to you and be like, I gotta show you this video I saw on YouTube last night. Whereas today you dread someone coming up to you and being like, I gotta show you this TikTok. But nothing captures the beauty of early YouTube more than this.
Leave Britney alone!
Leave Britney Alone was posted to YouTube on September 10th, 2007, the day after pop superstar Britney Spears drew criticism for a less than spectacular performance at the MTV Video and Music Awards. And it finds a hysterical fan in a blonde wig in their bed pleading hysterically to a front-facing digital camera to leave Britney alone. Now, for some important context here, Britney Spears in 2007 was everywhere, and it was for very unfortunate circumstances. She was essentially having a breakdown in front of the entire world. She lost custody of her children, had frequent run-ins with the paparazzi, shaved her head, was put in a mental health facility. Even as a kid, these were where were you when moments. Like the video of her shaving her hair off her head is ingrained into my skull. When the internet introduced us to 19-year-old Kara Crocker, formerly known as Chris Crocker, crying in their bedroom over Britney Spears, we of course couldn't take our eyes away. Because the Britney car crash was now turning into a pileup. Within its first 24 hours, the video had been viewed over 2 million times, inspired tons of parodies not only on the internet, but movies and TV shows. Crocker did interviews on late night television, got a big Hollywood development deal, and was the subject of an HBO documentary that played at Sundance. It wasn't only a glimpse into what the future may look like for viral stars on the internet, it was a snapshot of the fan communities and fans that would eventually dominate the space. Leave Britney Alone serves not only as an inflection point, but the thesis for modern stan culture, because of course Crocker wasn't the first stan. Fandom was always the lifeblood of pop culture, whether it was Beatlemania or Michael Jackson, Elvis, Frank Sinatra. But what many overlook in reminiscing over this video is that Kara at the time was a 19-year-old gay person from Bristol, Tennessee who lived with their grandparents. And being openly gay in 2007 was a completely different thing than it is today, especially in a very conservative area of the US like the South. Growing up, they were bullied in school, sent death threats, given glares for how they dressed, and was even harassed by homophobic teachers to the point where they had to be homeschooled. But platforms like YouTube and MySpace gave them something they'd never had before: a community, a voice, and a place where they weren't an outcast. Because Crocker had already been pulling in millions of views on their videos, even before their introduction to the mainstream. It was their space, it was their sanctuary, it was a new third place, if you will. The third place is a concept that breaks down life into 3 locations: your home, your place of work or school, and the public or communal space that you hang out in. Third spaces are a staple of culture, especially for those in their younger years, and a lot of time is spent at them. And of course, they can take many different shapes. A sports fan has a plethora of options: the stadium, a friend's house to watch the game, a sports bar. But think about Kara Crocker in 2007. Think about their life in Bristol, Tennessee. Think about what it must have felt like to not have a place to go, to talk to people and be yourself, where you can bond over things you love like 2000s pop girls. What Leave Britney Alone and the rise of social media platforms and YouTube showed us was that the third place was no longer just physical. It could actually be just as tangible to someone virtually. But but also when that place of solace is threatened, what it could do to a person. And what gets left out of a lot of the retrospectives on this video and the sensation that it was why Crocker was so upset. Britney Spears meant so much to this kid growing up in the world that they did. A world where their own mother went off to Iraq to fight in a war, and when she returned, she suffered from PTSD and developed a methamphetamine addiction, which caused her to become homeless. And as Crocker was watching his mother's life fall apart, the icon that they'd always looked up to and used as a form of escapism was also going down a similar path. And what once was an internet that Crocker felt they were free to be themselves within was pointing and laughing at the destruction of Britney's life. And this wasn't just about Britney, it was about what she represented to them, to her other fans, to an entire generation. She was an escape, a lifeline. And if you think about it, isn't that what fandom has always been? And while there's a much deeper and important conversation in all of this about how the internet gave a voice to marginalized groups like the LGBTQ+ communities, it also plants the seed for the even more intense parasocial relationships of pop culture's future, from the Swifties doxing a critic to Club Chalamet. But in the wake of Leave Britney Alone, we suddenly start to see the rise of fan armies on the internet who not only find community within their fandom, but their own identity. And any dent in the armor of who they live and die by is taken as a personal attack on who they are, because of how intrinsically tied their identity is to them. And it's not just the Swifties. Think about how many crash outs you've seen in the last year on Twitter from a guy with an owl in their bio. At this point as an artist, who even needs an official marketing or PR team when some fan on Twitter will do it for you? Or, Normani. But jokes aside, actually, was that even a joke? Didn't that actually happen? Yeah, no, that happened. That happened. The artist's success is absolutely their success as well, for stands as individuals or their community. Again, sports. And it's absolutely been taken advantage of by the major labels and artists themselves. That video was the first of its kind, which is just so ironic to say now because we get about like 5 of those a week just coming from the streamers. But in all of their DNA is this one video. A moment that showed us all just how deep fan culture was eventually going to go and how passionate fans had become. And what's so wild though is that just as this was all popping off, the next day happens. Wait till I get my money right. There aren't many years like 2007. Honestly, I can make a whole video just on that year in pop culture alone. Hint hint, wink wink. The movies, the music, the tech, hell, the comedy. Lots of things were happening at that time that would shape our lives for years and years to come. And Tuesday, September 11th, 2007 was a day that would do just that. A day that not only changed the course of hip-hop history, but pop music forever. The day Kanye West killed gangsta rap. On September 11th, 2007, after a highly publicized but friendly feud between the two biggest stars of hip-hop music at the time, Kanye West and 50 Cent both released their third studio albums, Graduation and Curtis, on the same day. Many view the moment and this rollout as a work of marketing genius that had the artists promoting their albums side by side and created a heavyweight-like event for the fans to watch. The Rolling Stone cover shoot, the non-stop media coverage, even by pop culture gossip bloggers like Perez Hilton, the VMA stare down, going on 106 in Park. Hell, 50 even said he stopped releasing solo music if he lost to Ye. The battle wasn't only for who could sell the most records, it was a battle for the future of hip-hop. And while the moment was the decision made by the people, I think what people never speak about when talking about this battle is why it happened. Because 50 Cent and Kanye West were signed to Interscope and Def Jam, two labels under the Universal Music Group umbrella. And I've always wondered why Universal would not only allow their two biggest artists to release two of the biggest albums of the year on the same exact day, but one, why the fans at that time would care who sells more in the first place, and two, why Universal would want one of their biggest artists to be deemed by the public as a loser. And the backstory of the 9/11 2007 makes it all make a lot more sense. But just the backstory on 50 Cent, because we did the Kanye thing already. You can watch that after this. 50 Cent was unstoppable in the mid-2000s. His debut, Get Rich or Die Trying, sold 13 million copies. Its first and second week sales match each other at 800K. His sophomore record does 1.1 million in the first week and also goes diamond. His singles were inescapable. Even his business moves were netting him hundreds of millions of dollars. It was like everything this guy touched turned to gold. And he was constantly reminding everyone of this. Because while hip-hop has always been braggadocious and rappers love to flex the numbers, 50 took it to another level. Like getting on the radio and reading his op sales numbers like he was an executive. To the point where he was originally going to call Curtis SSK. SSK standing for SoundScan Killer. SoundScan being the sales measurement tool used by Billboard. 50 brought these terms and these debates directly to the fans. And these sales conversations started to infiltrate internet message boards and early social media pages. If you were a 50 50 Cent fan, the best way to shut up a detractor was to say, well, why did he sell 1.1 million first week and Cameron only do 270? He brought this energy to the mainstream in the first place. And this energy wasn't just reserved for artists, because by the time Curtis came around, the pressure was on. 50 was publicly beefing with Interscope and its CEO, Jimmy Iovine. His singles leading up to the album weren't connecting, songs and videos were leaking, and he was telling the world it was Interscope's fault. It's even in the music too. And as tensions are brewing between 50 and the Suits, there was another hitmaker in the Universal building who frankly was way more aligned with not only what the label would want in a star, but where hip-hop and pop music were going. Because everything was shifting around this time, and the traditional gangster rap that dominated the charts wasn't part of the vision of what the future was going to be in this post-future sex love sounds, post-MySpace world of music. And with all that happening, some might say 50 had a little bit too much dip on his chip for their liking, and I think this kind of explains it all, doesn't it? Why Universal Music Group wanted to battle like this. Why they would want their two blockbuster releases to cannibalize each other. Why they would be okay with one of their artists being deemed a loser. But also why 50 couldn't back down from what was coming. He was led into a battle that he had no interest in fighting, but had to because of the environment he helped cultivate. One of the little tidbits of information that gets slept on through all the interviews and press that was surrounding this album rollout is when 50 told the host of 106 in Park that he was actually hesitant to partake in the sales battle with Ye in the first place, and that he eventually agreed to join it. And while at the time this little ounce of vulnerability seemed a little out of character for 50 Cent, in retrospect, 50 knew the walls were closing in. He started to see that the plans in motion didn't involve him anymore, and that his greatest weapon was now going to be used against him to humble him. And whenever you're watching this, we all know how it went. Kanye West reigned supreme, ending the first week with 957,000 units sold, while Curtis got left in the dust at a shocking 691,000. Kanye told Rolling Stone in the cover story for the battle that hip-hop was the only sport of music, and he wasn't wrong. But what graduation represents is a turning point in the history of popular music. It's the moment where hip-hop and its superstars like Ye and 50 were now just as big, if not bigger, than the traditional pop stars of the time. It's the moment that the changing of the guards begins, and the gates open up for artists like Drake and Travis Scott and even Kendrick Lamar to become the mavericks of pop music that they eventually become. Oh yeah. Y'all thought I forgot? It's the moment that hip-hop starts to control pop and everything about it, whether that be the competitive spirit of the genre or the grassroots development of artists, especially in the internet age on platforms like DatPiff and My Mixtapes that eventually paved the way for SoundCloud and the streaming platforms. For better or for worse, it not only changed the way fans interact with the music they're listening to, but the trajectory of modern music forever. I mean, all of these did. But these three moments aren't the true cause of pop music sport-ification. These three moments are just an acceptance of who we are. Competition taps into our most basic human instincts, our constant need for dopamine, our inherently tribalistic nature. Like the social identity theory would suggest, we define ourselves by the groups we belong to, and it's these groups that give us a sense of pride, belonging, and self-worth. They make us feel like we're a part of something greater than ourselves, just like our ancestors did on a basic survival level. Now apply this to humanity over time, where priorities shift and people become increasingly more online. Yeah, people want to give a shit about something. People want to escape. People want to feel like they won the Super Bowl. The sportification of pop music was always going to happen. But that should never stop you from remembering why you're here, why you're a fan in the first place, why you loved that Drake song or Kendrick album. Because music, like sports, is the ultimate unifier. And for as fragmented as it's all become, at its core, it's about bringing people together. Whether it be at a bar or a Twitter timeline, that's what the best of this stuff does. It gives you joy, it gives you hope, and of course, community. But yeah, Drake still lost.